Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes here. Wait a couple of minutes for everybody to get on. Yeah, we still got some people coming on. All right, we might have a couple more people getting on, but I think we're going to get ready here. All right, welcome. Good morning, everybody. This is the California Apprenticeship Council Training Funds informational session. My name is Jean-Marie Duvall, and I'm the Outreach Manager at DAS. We're going to get started here. Everybody should be muted, but you can put your questions in the Q&A down at the bottom of the screen at any time. We have a couple of folks who will be answering questions while the presentation is going, but we will be holding some space and time for Q&A at the end of the presentation as well. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to our website. So without further ado, let's get started. I introduce Ben Palazzolo. Ben, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Jean-Marie. Hi, and welcome everybody to the webinar for the 2025 application process for the CAC Training Fund reimbursements. I really appreciate everyone making the time to attend. I'm excited to speak with all of you today about this year's increase in reimbursement funding allocation and our new application process. First, we're going to continue our round of introductions. So as Jean-Marie said, my name is Ben Palazzolo. I'm the manager as part of the funding team here at DAS that's overseeing this program. I joined in March, and so it's been really exciting to learn about DAS and this program and kind of jump into things. And I'll pass it along to Deanne Harrison to introduce herself.
Hi, Deanne Harrison, and I am the funding chief, and we are happy to have you here for the first seminar presentation.
You want to pass it along to another member of our team, Deanne?
Well, I'm going to pass it back to you, Ben.
Okay. Kevin, can you introduce yourself real quick? I think you're on mute, sir.
Hi, everyone. This is Kevin from the funding team, and in the past, I have handled these CAC Training Fund grants, and I'm glad we have a new forward-moving process, and I'm excited to be here and have been explained the new process, and it's really going to be more efficient, and I'm actually glad to see this allocation increase for all of these CAC programs. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. We also got Sonia from the Training Fund team on the line. Sonia, can you introduce yourself super quick, please?
Hi, my name is Sonia. I am currently working with Kevin and Ben, and I'm here to assist Kevin on the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonia. And I believe we have Raul Galvin on here as well. Raul, can you introduce yourself real quick? Or maybe not. Maybe he's jumping in later.
Sorry, I had some technical issues there. Raul Galvin, I am here as the operation manager, but also supporting the training fund contributions grant. So I've worked with some of you before, so please, I'm looking forward to this new system that we created for you guys to submit, and it'll be a little bit much more streamlined. So yeah, I'm eager to continue working with everyone.
Thanks, Raul. And now I'd like to have the team we've been working with to help develop this new application process introduce themselves really quick. I'm going to hand it over to Chris Chaffee, if you can introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Chris Chaffee. I'm the Deputy Director over at the Office of Community Partnership and Strategic Communications, and we're our office hosts and created Cord, which is a system you guys will all become will all use to do the application process. So we're really excited to be here to provide this training and to work with the DOS team, with Ben and the great folks over there. I'd like to introduce one of my colleagues, Michael Conrique. He's also on the call.
Thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. As Chris mentioned, I'm a part of the support team here, supporting Chris and all of you wonderful people here at the California Apprenticeship Council and Training Fund. We'll be specifically supporting with any questions you might have related to CORD, and I look forward to today's informational session. Chris, Ben, I'd like to toss it back to you.
Okay, wonderful. Our intentions today provide background for the recent changes in the funding allocation available to all of you and explain how this new application process works. We all recognize that this is a new process, but as the rest of the team has mentioned, our hope is that it's a streamlined process that'll be easy to navigate once it becomes familiar. We're going to host office hours on October 14th and the 28th for people to participate in, and we can help them troubleshoot this process. There'll be more information about that later in this webinar. And really, I just want to make the point that, we are going to do our best to be stewards of this process, answer questions, recognizing that it's new. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for communication later in this webinar and going forward through the application process. We'll get the presentation going. All right. So real brief, I'm going to provide an overview and kind of the new developments with the training funds allocation. And then really excited, Chris is going to do a live walkthrough of the new application so you can all follow along and learn how to navigate through it and the different components of it. Then I'll share some information about the timeline, key dates, and all of the resources we're making available. And then we're going to try to have about 20 minutes available at the end for Q&A. So most folks are probably familiar with about 95% of this, but I'd just like to provide some framing or some foundation for this funding vehicle. So DAS, Division of Apprenticeship Standards, is within part of the Department of Industrial Relations. We steward the CAC training funds in accordance with California Labor Code and on behalf of the Apprenticeship Council. Contributions are paid into this fund via contractors working on public work projects based on prevailing wages of the apprentices and journey persons that they employ. Each year, funds are distributed to registered apprenticeship programs that apply for reimbursement of eligible expenses. That amount of funding that each particular program receives is based on the occupations they train apprentices for and where they operate within the state and the number of contributions for that occupation in that region that were given during that period of time. Earlier this year, we submitted a proposal to state government to increase the annual allocation available for reimbursement from $3 million, which it has been for several years, to $17 million. That proposal was approved. So that's why, we're all here today talking, and we're able to push this process forward. So by receiving more financial support from the training fund on an ongoing basis, all of you hopefully will be better funded and supported to prepare a larger pool of apprentices on an ongoing basis. That's our hope. And just to be clear, how the reimbursement funding is going to be allocated, that calculation is not changing. Because significantly more funding will be available, we hope that some programs that were eligible in the past but didn't apply will consider and apply this year. So we expect the number of contribution payments to continue to increase or at minimum maintain their current levels. To ensure that these funds remain available and continue to be administered responsibly, we've updated the application process. How applicants apply, is staying the same. We want to support the organization and the traceability of these reimbursements from these fundings to maintain, like I had said, the availability of this funds going forward. The information being supplied is not going to change, just the process. Ultimately, these changes are happening to support the stewardship of these funds by us. As we've mentioned, the application process will be handled through the online portal, CORD, California Online Rapid Deployment, I think is correct. Yep. What that stands for.
Yes.
I have that memorized now. We've talked about it so much. What that means really is, instead of emailing or mailing us copies of receipts and application forms, all of you will submit them via this online platform we're going to do a demonstration of shortly. Here at DAS, we've successfully migrated other grant application and reporting processes to this platform, such as for the California Opportunity Youth Apprenticeship Grant, COYA, and the Equal Representation in Construction Apprenticeship Grant, ERICA. This new platform is going to organize and track each applicant's submissions. So it's not just streamlining it for us, but hopefully it's streamlining it for you, because instead of managing a bunch of paperwork, or different files, it's all in one place on this platform. So in the past, applicants would complete an application form and then submit all their copies of the relevant receipts and invoices. We'd process them, and then upon approval, we'd send payment. This year, it went out Tuesday evening, an eligibility notice that will provide detailed instructions on how to go through this process. Instead of one form, applicants are going to have to complete 2 to 3 components through the online platform, but it's going to still be relatively straightforward. These new forms include a cover sheet, a detailed expense report, and a pay information form if information regarding the fiscal entity or the organization receiving payment has changed since the previous year. The notice of eligibility, again, all of you should have received via email. This will list the amount of funding that each program is eligible for this year, based on the formula I mentioned earlier. It's also going to contain a unique application number that each program will use when they register and start their application process, and the count of apprentices served for that calculation. Some of that information you're going to put into CORD yourself. So that ends my little introduction and kind of background piece. I'm going to stop sharing. Chris, if you want to pull up the CORD landing page and then walk everybody through this.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Let me hop over, start sharing my screen. So, okay, let's see. I think everyone should be able to see it now. So to start with, you'll come to cordhub.org and click on, if you don't have an account already, you can click on create account and just follow the prompts through, and you should get through. If you have any problems, you can always click on this feedback tab, or send us an email at support@cordhub.org, and we can make sure you get through. But everyone should be able to create a new account and get launched into this page, which this is the CORD landing page. And for this application, you would click on Networks, then My Applications. And to start a new application, you click on this big green button on the right-hand side, and you can hit Apply Now. So I've already kind of started an application because I just didn't want you to watch me input information throughout. But I did want to show you how this works. So when you click on that new application, you're funneled here, and you'll have 5 different sections to fill out, starting with the cover sheet. And the cover sheet is pretty self-explanatory. I think the biggest hurdle, the most complicated element is you've got that application number that Ben and the team sent to you. So that's where, so this first box is where you put that application number in, and then you want to make sure to marry it with your DOS file number. These things are unique to your organization. So that those are, I think, the most complicated elements. Now, then you just fill out the rest of the form. This is, I'm not a real applicant, but I'm putting through some dummy information. So I filled out my program name, the street address, the contact person, email and phone, and then you put in your fiscal entity name information, and you go. And the other thing I think with Cord is, if you want to do it over time, you can always hit the save exit here. So if I hit save exit, I can come back and it's already filled out. The cover sheet has already been filled out. So if you want to go to the next section, this is where you put your occupational information in. So I've just done 1, but you can do up to, it looks like 15 different occupations if you need to. So, and then depending on how many you fill in, it will create boxes for you. So I'm just going to do the 1. Also, I think something just to flag, everything with the red asterisk next to it, a red star, those are required to be filled in. And you can see this total funding requested at the bottom comes from this field here. So it will automatically populate. That's why there's no star for it next to it. So once I'm completed the occupational information, I can go hit next. And then we come to the expense report. So this is where you want to put in your expenses. And you want to use this black plus number on the right-hand side. When you hover over it, it'll say to add a row. So you put in a date. Come on. There we go. So in a category, operating expenses, and then write it in a description. And then you put in your cost. And then you hit this save record. And what'll happen is it'll mark as complete. And if I'm done, I can hit this button and say mark as complete. I can also add another row and keep going. The other thing is that we've linked to the California Apprenticeship Council Training Funds reference guide. So if you have questions about the categories, the descriptions, when you're entering this, please click on this hyperlink, and you'll be taken to the guide. So it's linked here. You can download it, you can search it, and there's a lot of information on the application, so that you can reference that as you go. If I hit mark as complete, it's kind of cool. It'll show you what your expenses were. So since I only put in 1 bucket of expenses, the operating expense, that's all that it showed. All of this field is, is from these top rows and is also editable. So once you're done with the expense report, you can click next. And this is where you want to do all your attachments. So the first box up here, supporting documents and receipts. This is where you'd want to click in and add all of your maybe your PDF of all the receipts you've had. So let me just add a document so we can go forward. So you can add your documents here, and then the kind of the next to final step, the penultimate step, is this payee record? So it's a series of questions. So if you already have an SCD 204, 205 on with the CAC, you can mark this already have current SCD 204, 205 on file. Or if you need to submit a new one, or update an existing, you can also make those checks. And if you check one of these two boxes, the template will come up for you to download, and then you just would upload it here in this drag and drop box. Let's see, was there? So then once you've put in your documents and receipts for your expenses, and you've answered whether you have the CAC has your STD 204 or 205, you hit next, and this is the signature page. So you put in your name. I don't really like to draw because I just do squiggly lines. So you can click if you want to draw your signature here instead, but you click sign, and it says submission has been signed correctly. You can also remove it and add a new name, and then you hit submit. And what's cool, what we like about this system is once you hit that submit button, you'll automatically get an email from the user that submitted it saying thank you for submitting the application. I think that actually I just got it in my inbox. It says the application submitted CAC-TF0020, which is the application number. So now that you're done, I think we can open it up for questions.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
If I'm going to just share my screen, I had a couple more slides, and then we'll do a little bit more. We'll do questions.
Oh, sorry, Ben. I'll pass it back to Ben.
That's all right. Thanks for giving us that guide. So I just wanted to share this is the process timeline. This has the dates for our office hours. It's going to be the 14th of October and the 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific. November 14th is going to be the deadline for the applications to be submitted. We're going to be starting processing in October and next month, continuing through December. We estimate that the payments will go out January through March of next year. And then here we go. Here's the big list. So do a screenshot or something. I'll leave that up there for a minute. That's the web page, our web page for the CAC Training Funds. The event page, which has links to all the office hours. You can register now if you'd like and put that into your schedule. There's another link for the reimbursement guidance document that Chris mentioned earlier. His team put together a really simple, like 2-page primer on that first part of registering onto CORD and getting your application started. It's a simple PDF, and then the CORD webpage as well. So I'm just going to leave that up there, and we can move to Q&A. I had a couple just points to bring up. So one of them is on the second part, the second component, the occupation information. All of that should be on your notice of eligibility. So really you're putting that information on there, and that's to help confirm that both DAS and the program applying are on the same page about the apprentices served, the occupations, the number of occupations those apprentices fall under, and the total amount that the program is eligible for. Second, on the expenses report, there's several different, I think 8 different categories of expenses that the program can connect to the specific expenses that they submit. The operating expenses, that can be things like facility rent. That can only be 10% of the total funding being requested. So again, the operating expense can only be 10% of the total amount of reimbursement that's being requested. So that's in the guidance document, but I just wanted to point that out. And now we can open it up for for Q&A, and the appropriate member of the team will respond. We got lots of time. And if we need to, we can go back into the, oh, actually, I'm going to share my screen because that has our, if you want to email us questions later, this is the training fund grants at dir.ca.gov. But if we need to during QA, Chris can pull back that screen up. We can work through something specifically. So I believe we got some team members working on the Q&A window. What questions we have so far, John Marie?
Sorry, Ben, we do have a couple of questions here. Sorry. To
Yeah, let's do it. No,
but,
let's jump in.
So the first one that I see here is dates for invoices have to be between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025.
Yes, so it's that's the fiscal year that this reimbursement applies for.
Okay. And I've got another question here. How do you get the funding request amount?
So I believe I'm thinking they're asking the funding their total, the funding they're eligible for, the total amount that they're eligible for. It should be on the eligibility notice that they received. And that's
Okay.
that's a calculation again based on the apprentices that they served, the occupations those apprentices were training for, and the geographic areas that training happened in.
Right. I have one more question here. Thanks, Ben, from Christine.
Please.
If a program has multiple occupations, do they submit a separate application for each occupation?
No, it's one application per program. On the eligibility notice, it should list all of the occupations that are eligible for this reimbursement and all the registered apprentices that participated in training for those occupations. So it's one application per program. That application can cover multiple occupations. Great question so far.
We got another one.
Yeah, we got lots of time, so keep them coming.
I see here somebody's asking if we can please send the deadline dates and resource links. Yes, all of the links that Ben has on here are on our website. So dir.ca.gov/apprenticeship. And if you click on, what is the funding resources, and then CAC Training Funds, and everything is there as well.
Right, and I just put that screen back up as well. So
thanks, Ben. That's helpful. So another question here, our LEA is Chabot College. We receive RSI funding. Would this be double dipping for us to apply?
Raul, could you field that question?
I think in the past, the CAC Training Funds has been not restricted by RSI funding. Kevin, if I'm correct, I think we would just provide this grants regardless if the individual received or the program received RSI funding from the LEA. Because it's predetermined already. But you know what? We could look at it further just to verify it. But I believe there is no conflict. But maybe add it, and we'll respond to that. Like a quick ask question.
Yeah, I can take that person's email, and we can respond to them directly.
Yeah, I think that might be best. And then we'll add our answer to a frequent asked question. I think no way anybody could get the same information.
Thanks, Raul.
Thanks, Raul.
I have another one here. The STD 204-205 payee data record. Is there a way to find out if DAS has the updated information, or if we need to update a new one?
I mean, I'm gonna share my answer and then ask for one of my team members to confirm. But if you've been receiving payments from DAS, we should have your updated information. It's if it has changed, the organization or the contact information for that organization that receives payment has changed since the last time you've gotten paid from us. So, for example, if you received CAC Training Fund reimbursement the last cycle, and that entity that received the payment or the contact information has changed, then you'll want to submit updated paperwork, that STD 204 document. As far as confirming what we have on record, Kevin or Raul, is there a way that they can see what we have for their fiscal entity?
Yes, they could. The program can just send us their DAS file number and trust fund name to training fund grants at dir.ca.gov, and we'll take a look at what's on file.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin.
Let's see. The next one that I see here is if you have multiple application numbers, do you need to start a separate application for each? We have 7 application numbers under our training trust fund.
Yeah, so it's that, I'm assuming that means that they have different programs with different DAS file numbers. Then it would be a different application for each one. So not for different occupations like a previous participant on this call had asked, but for multiple programs, yeah, you need to submit an application for each different program.
Got it. Somebody's asking when the recording will be available, and it should be up on our website within the week. Let's see. Can you reshare the screen with the application timeline?
Yes, I can. Absolutely. There we go.
And let's see, I've got a question here. Expense report is for the last grant that needs to be uploaded, correct?
So expense report, yeah, that's actually a really good question. So starting with this this cycle of this reimbursement and going forward, the expenses to be eligible, they just have to fall within that timeline, and they need to match the eligible categories. But they don't need to be, I know there was some, this was discussed at the August CAC meeting. This question was brought up. You don't, the previous expenses don't have to be with funding that was received from this reimbursement vehicle in the past, meaning like those receipts don't have to be connected to funding you've received from this last time. It just has to be it's just simple reimbursement. It just has to have the receipts or the invoices, and has to be the eligible categories within that time frame. However you spent previous monies from this reimbursement program from DAS is not relevant with the money the reimbursement funding you could receive this time. I hope that's clear.
Thanks,
we're
Ben.
trying to streamline this process just to make it simple. Like, you did the work, you have the receipts, you get the reimbursement. That's all it is.
Yeah, and if that wasn't answered fully, the training fund grants, the training fund grants at dir.ca.gov email, you can also send your questions there. So
yeah,
let's see.
And I recognize real quick, I just recognize that's, I expect to get many different questions about that kind of aspect. So please don't hesitate to send an email. We'll send you something back. If the email's not making sense, we'll give you a call. Like, we're gonna make time to talk with everyone about how exactly this is working and kind of how to frame it, think about it.
Thanks, Ben. So let's see, I've got a few more here.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
Yeah, we're doing good. So when turning in receipts, do you need to supersede the eligible grant amount by a certain percent?
No. So the way that it works is the total funding amount a program is eligible to receive, that's the maximum they could receive. I anticipate just from, I joined in March, but I did look through the receipts we've received in previous years, and the funding allocation was much smaller. But it seemed to me that most, if not all of the programs had eligible expenses in excess of the funding they were eligible to receive. I think that's going to be the case this time as well. And so most programs, I'm thinking they're going to have eligible expenses up to their funding amount. But if they don't, so for example, if a program is eligible for $50,000 in reimbursement funding, and for some reason they only have $45,000, then it's up to that amount of eligible expenses that they're for. But there's no percentage or anything. It's just, here's the total, and then give us the receipts for all of the expenses that are eligible.
And I see also that Deanne had answered no while you were talking.
Well, the shorter answer, yeah. I'm a little more long-winded than Deanne, good or bad. So
no, it was a good explanation. Let's see, how and when will we receive the letter that states the application number? Now, I thought that those had already gone out. Is that right?
yes, they had been sent by email. So we sent them to the contact email for the apprenticeship program and for the training director for the attached trust fund and whatever additional contacts we have. But we recognize that maybe some people didn't get it. It went to the wrong email address, needs to be updated, it was bounced. So just send an email to that training fund grants at dir.ca.gov and say, hey, this is my program. This is my DLS file number. I didn't get an eligibility notice, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Great. Yeah, training fund grants at dir.ca.gov.
Yep.
So for the invoices and receipts, do you need both invoice and receipt? We make payments via check and oftentimes don't have a receipt. Is there another method for receipts?
Kevin, I'm gonna hand this question over to you because I know you've processed these invoices and receipts in past years.
Wait, then can you restate the question, please?
Yeah, for the invoices and receipts, you need both invoice and receipt. They make payments via check and oftentimes don't receive a receipt. So is there another method for receipts?
You could also, we could always take a look at whatever supporting documentation that you have. So it doesn't necessarily, if you just have the receipts, you can provide that. And if you just have the invoices, you can provide that along with any type of financial ledger, that can account for the expenses. So just as before, we can be more broad about that, but we do reserve the right to kind of take a look at the documentation, at the receipts and the invoices that you provide. So.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, that matches my understanding. We basically need a record, at least one record. So it's kind of like an invoice or a receipt in that regard.
Got another question. Could materials for training be accepted as expenses?
Absolutely. That is an eligible category. So, and in the past, I think it was a training program for a roofing occupation, and they had gypsum board, consumables. That's absolutely eligible. So are hand tools. So are like office supplies, classroom supplies for the apprentices. It's a wide range of stuff, and that's on the eligibility. And then, Chris, was there a link to? We didn't mention it, but was there a link to descriptions of those eligible categories in CORD, or is that something that we have to put up there?
It's in the. Is it in the guide that?
It is in the guide. Yeah.
Yeah. So the guide linked is in the top of the third section on expense reports, or your expense reports. So you can always click. It'll create a new window in your browser that you can then go reference there.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And the expense report. So in the guide, it doesn't have a picture of what it looks like on the application, but it explains in real detail all the information that needs to be submitted, what types of expenses fit into each category. And again, if you're, uncertain, just please let us know, and we'll try to clarify that with you.
Okay, thank you. And so I see, when and how do we apply for fiscal year 2025, 2026 funding? And I believe that if they were going to apply, they should have received a letter. And if not, then they should reach out to Training Fund Grants, not to answer it, but is that correct, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, so basically this funding that we've talked about that's going to be distributed this is a reimbursement for expenditures that happened during the previous fiscal year. So answer one, if they have expenses and they didn't get an eligibility notice, email us and we'll follow up. But our plan is that this is going to be happening every year. So expenditures in this fiscal year, starting this past July 1 and going through June 30th of 2026, you'll apply for those then the next following fall when it's the next cycle of that funding. So I hope one of those two answers your question.
Thanks. Let's see the next question here. We asked a question last year and we're told there is no issue to receive this grant, even though we receive RSI from a college. Is anyone able to confirm that? It's not really a question, but it looks like they asked that question and they were told that there was no issue to receive this grant, even though they receive RSI from college.
Yeah, I think that was the question, if I understand it correctly, that Raul had
from earlier.
Yeah, I think we've kind of flagged that already.
Yeah, it's someone else. So
my inclination is that it isn't, but we wanted to double check just to verify it.
I want to note that it is a separate person, so I'll
okay.
mark both of these.
Right. And so we'll address that individually, but also we'll address it. Like I said, we'll probably be creating frequent asked questions, and we'll put that in there.
Got it.
But my understanding in the past, it wasn't. So I just since we're doing this a little different now, I just want to verify that.
Yeah, and we'll get that definitive answer. Let's see. We have never applied for CAC funding. Can we apply?
So you have to be an eligible program, meaning that you operated an apprenticeship program, a registered apprenticeship program with DAS in the building and trades occupations within California. And then that should make you eligible to receive funding. So if you're doing an apprenticeship program that's outside of building and trade occupations, then you're not eligible, because this funding is specifically to reimburse expenses by those types of programs.
And again, if you have any questions about whether you're eligible, you can always send those questions to the Training Fund Grants at dir.ca.gov. Let's see. I have one here that's from Roger. Our instructors are part-time as they work in the field full-time. Can their payroll be considered an invoice, or must the invoices be hard items such as equipment or software?
Yeah, so salary for instructors, part-time or otherwise, is an eligible expense. So yes, their payroll could count as that invoice or receipt. The thing I would recommend is then you want to, in the expense description, so there's a field in that expense report where you just provide a little bit of information, specifically describing the expense and how it helps apprenticeships. You'd want to say, hey, for these instructors, they are all, let's say half of their time they use for training apprentices. You'd want to say they're 0.5 of an FTE. That basically is saying 50% full-time equivalent. 50% of their time is spent on training apprentices. And then you can just provide a record of what they were paid, and that counts as that that invoice or that receipt. That's the hard documentation. So taking a broader step back, yeah, in the past, these reimbursement fundings, again, from my understanding going through the receipts, mostly they were for hard costs, equipment, consumables, office supplies. Now there's additional categories, right? Like staff salary, staff benefits, operating expenses. Again, that's limited to 10% of the total expense amount being claimed. So
Ben, if I could add,
Yes,
if you have more questions regarding expenses, please look at the guidance document.
Yeah.
It kind of laid it out on what is an acceptable expense. So I know we're probably going to get more questions, and that's fine. But just to let you know, the guidance document goes over what is an acceptable expense under this funding source.
Thanks, Raul.
Sure.
Thank you, Raul.
We do have a couple more people who definitely want to know that answer to the double dipping question, but I have another one here for, so we don't do the past, just the future as we spend the grant funds?
So the grant funds are structured as a reimbursement. I think I understand the question. I'm gonna do my best to answer. So basically this is called formula funding. And so basically there's a formula that establishes how much funding a program is eligible for. And then it's a reimbursement of past expenses. So that goes back to that kind of fiscal year framing of this is when those expenses were spent. And then this is money that gets given to an eligible program for those costs. It's not like a traditional grant where you apply and then you get funding for future work. This is, you basically provide receipts for past work, and then that funding, those expenses you have already paid, you get reimbursement for those expenses in the past.
Thanks, Ben. And I think that you were sort of answering the next question, who determines the eligibility of the funds, and it's formula funding.
It's formula funding. So meaning that it's just a calculation. There's not a person involved. It's not like a grant where, there's an application that gets evaluated, then funding gets awarded. It's just a formula that's based on apprentices served within a timeline, within a geographic area tied to specific occupations.
Thanks. Let's see a question here from someone else. Do we have to use all the grant monies within the year?
Again, this is a reimbursement. So the thought is that you've already spent all of your own money on these expenses, and then this is just a reimbursement of those expenses. We're not asking for any reporting on how this money is spent once you received it, because it is a reimbursement for past expenses that you've already incurred.
Thank you. I see a question about, can you add additional categories if they are needed? And I think that goes back to the guide, right? That we should, they should reference the guide.
The guidance document, the categories are set, right? So the expenses have to fall within those categories. But this process is new. And so after we go through this cycle of funding, there will be opportunity for feedback to think about, how this gets structured for years to come. Now, again, like this funding is controlled by statute. So of course, with that is something that we have to obey. But in terms of the details, like what is one of the eligible categories is like the consumables, like we talked about. And there might be some discussion that comes after this year that's like, oh, well, really this falls in that category or this kind of doesn't. And that might be further clarified on future cycles of this grant. But as of right now, no, you have to select. all the expenses have to fit in one of the categories we've provided for this year's funding.
Great, thanks, Ben. If we submit our application before November 14th, and for some reason something is not filled out correctly, how soon will we be notified? And when we are notified, will there be a timeline to correct the application and resubmit?
Yeah, so the application, that date, that deadline is just to submit the application. I always advise don't wait until the end, right? Get it done sooner. And we're going to start processing these applications in October. So if you submit your application, by the end of this week, we're going to start processing in October. And the ones that get submitted earlier, we are going to process earlier. And to your question, if something's incorrect, we'll send you what's called a correction notice, a notice of correction saying, hey, this ABC information doesn't match. Can you please provide this correction? That second piece, the back and forth, that falls within that estimated eligibility evaluation, the October to December. That's when we're going to be processing applications, right? That's when we're going to having these conversations with programs about what's on their application, trying to get them correct, trying to remove any ambiguities. That requires the application to be submitted by the 14th, but the processing, the back and forth, can happen after that. We're going to try to wrap that up in December so we can issue payments, early next year.
So it sounds like if something is not filled out correctly, you will be notified, and there will be a back and forth to get that correct.
There will be absolutely a back and forth. It doesn't have to. The application deadline is for submission, not completion of the evaluation process.
Thanks for clarifying. So if I already received eligibility letters based on number of apprentices, does that mean I cannot apply for something else via DAS? For example, expense reimbursements and operating expense reimbursements?
No, so I think there's kind of a confusion. So the total amount of funding a program is eligible to receive is based on the number of that calculation, the number of apprentices served, that formula. So that gives you a big number. To get that funding, you provide expenses for up to that amount. So that first calculation is just, hey, this is the funding you're eligible to receive. And then you give us the receipts for the expenses up to that amount, right? So the expenses are for operating costs and everything else. There's no expense for just having apprenticeships. That's how the that initial amount is calculated that you're eligible to receive, but the expenses are actually what is allowing you to receive that reimbursement because it's for those literal expenses.
Thanks. Okay, we still got a few more questions here. Some of our invoices include shared expenses between multiple training centers. Can we use this invoice for multiple applications, or does the invoice need to be explicit for the designated training center?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll provide a general answer, and then I'll see if Kevin, what he thinks of it as kind of the person with the most experience processing these. So really, we need to just understand what expense is specific to your organization, right? So if it's a shared expense between two organizations, then okay, well, 50% of that is to organization A because they're sharing that expense, assuming that they're using the resource tied to that expense for an equal amount of time. So we just need some narrative or clarification on if it's a shared expense, how much of that expense, how much of that resource what percentage of it were you using it? Kevin, does that kind of jive with how we've handled that in the past?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, so I think that this had been answered before, but I just want to make sure that that we have raised it. So my instructor expense is considered operational?
Instructor salaries are a separate category. That is not an operational expense. So
got it.
The salary is not, because the operational expense, again, is limited, right? 10% of the total. The salaries are not, right? And so if you want to submit all of your expenses as salaries for your instructors, and that's up to or above your eligible limit, your funding eligibility amount, then that's fine. You can do that.
Okay. And there is that guide also for more detail
Correct,
about what is
correct.
what's covered. So if your letter says you are eligible for a certain amount of monies, do you need to submit invoices to equal that amount in order to receive the monies on your letter, or will we receive a lesser amount?
So you'll receive, ideally you want to submit expenses that match or exceed that amount. And then you'll receive the amount you're eligible to receive. But it's whatever the smaller amount is. So like in the extreme case, this wouldn't be how it would work, but just for an example, if you were eligible to receive $10,000 of funding and you only had $50 of expenses, well, then you would receive $50 because it's a reimbursement of expenses actually paid. But again, our experiences and our hope with the expanded expense categories is that every program should have expenses that equal or exceed the funding amount they're eligible to receive.
Got it. Let's see. In the past, we have received a grant check and then we spent the money and provided proof of expenses. I'm not sure the way you're explaining it is correct. I think that this is speaking to, are they reporting the future or the past? And this is a reimbursement for expenses that happened in the previous fiscal year, correct?
Right. So that is different. It's just a reimbursement of those expenses that happened during that timeline. It is not connected. It's not connected to any kind of promise to spend these funds on certain things in the future. It's just a reimbursement similar to our
past
of what you spent in the past, similar to our AIF formula funding program.
And then was CORD designed to streamline the processes and not to change the intent? Is CORD changing the intent?
Yeah, CORD is just so the reason that the CORD application and everything was brought in is to make sure that we have traceability and that all these documents are easy to be organized in case, heaven forbid, there's an audit or something else later. Like we have all of these records tracked. In the past, it was just, one form and a bunch of receipts. Sometimes that would be mailed in. And now the CORD application, the online application, kind of brings the standards of how this is administered up to a similar level as our other grants and formula funding vehicles. So
right.
CORD is really just an organizational tool.
Thanks, Ben. Mm-hmm. I've got a question here. I'm new to my position and looking at the application submitted last year for our program, it appears that the receipt was submitted for the fiscal year dates that is indicated on this year's application. Should the receipt be resubmitted with this year's application?
If it falls within that, if it falls within, right, because in the past it was forward. If it falls within that timeline, then yeah, it should be resubmitted.
Okay. Now I know we've only got one more minute left, and I do want to be mindful of folks' time. We do still have a few questions left here. I can continue to answer them, but I think that might take another half an hour. So just for time, I think it might be best for us to take these questions and respond to them via email. We do have your information here from Zoom, and we can respond to you individually. I think that I would like to just reiterate that we do have some wonderful resources available on our website and on the CORD application itself, right? Within CORD, those resources are there as well. So we have we have a lot of information out there that might answer some of these questions, but still we will get back to each of you individually. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Ben?
No, just thanks everyone for this time. You know, like I said, we're all excited to work with you and help make this work. And we realize it's going to be an ongoing conversation to kind of everyone to get on the same page, to figure out how the system works, answer these different questions. And that's okay. We're going to make the time and the space to have that conversation.
Yeah, and this has been recorded. We will be putting this webinar up on our website within the week. So thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
Have
Enjoy
a great
the rest
day.
of your day.